Hello and welcome to the Irish History Boys. In this episode, we discuss the ineffectiveness of the League of Nations and the UN as well. And we also discuss the death of Francisco Franco, the Spanish dictator who died 50 years ago.
October 27th, 1925. The Irish News. The League of Nations stands up. Some successes as an instrument of conciliation and construction are to the credit of the League of Nations. Several displays of irresolution and weakness made sympathetic observers of its work feel doubtful regarding its ability, as at present constituted, to deal vigorously with a really dangerous situation. It failed, sadly, for instance, when Greece appealed to it against the brutal and unjustifiable bombardment of Corfu by the Italians. But when Bulgaria claimed intervention after the Greeks had rushed troops into her territory as a reprisal for the shooting of Greek soldiers by Bulgarian borderers, the League acted with so much promptitude and spirit that its admirers will become widely, perhaps unreasonably, enthusiastic this week. The occasion was favourable for an exhibition of firmness. Mussolini's Italy on the warpath was a formidable proposition. Lord Cecil ran away from Mussolini over the Corfu affair, and his colleagues of the League retreated in disorder also. But Greece and Bulgaria are small boys in the great school of nations. It was deemed safe and judicious to spank them at once. And on general principles, it is quite possible that both richly deserved chastisement.
Hello and welcome to the Irish History Boys with me, Cormac Moore.
And me, Tim McGarry. They don't write them like that anymore,
No.
do they?
Spanked them at once.
And both richly deserved chastisement.
Chastisement is a word you don't hear often.
Welcome to the Irish History Boys. As I say, we, Cormac and I, discuss Irish news articles from... I'm having a... We're just after lunch, by the
You're
way.
getting very tongue-tied.
I'm tongue-tied today. Cormac Moore and I discuss articles that appeared in the Irish News 50 years ago and 100 years ago. This is, of course, 100 years ago. The League of Nations. Yeah. And some people may not even have heard of the League of Nations. Then they know the United Nations.
And this is a similar type thing.
A very similar type thing
concept,
that was conceived after World War I in the hopes and that it would prevent war ever happening again. And it was a very important international body, but didn't quite get to deal with the likes of Mussolini and Hitler and various people like that.
Or America. America didn't join it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of when it started off, I think only about 60-something countries, 67 countries joined it. So it and mainly European countries as well. So Did it come about after the Treaty of Versailles? It was part of the Treaty of Versailles.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the treaty that ended the First World War and gave bits of Germany to France and demanded reparations and all that sort of, and carved up all the new nations of Europe.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was, I think. Look, the war had been the most cataclysmic conflict in the history of mankind up to that point. So this was, I think, a genuine effort. And like Woodrow Wilson, the American president, would have been kind of one of the instigators, one of the pioneers of it. That look, we need to come up with better solutions than killing each other, fighting each other. So let's have kind of a body that. The big powers and it was very important for small nations, to have a say as well, not just being bullied and bulldozed by the massive powers. But this would be a true voice to small nations, but also to prevent conflicts and have world peace. That was its objective.
So this article is telling us. Sometimes we forget the history. Benito Mussolini came to power in Italy around 22.
Yeah.
This is 1925. Clearly, the Italians were kind of stretching their muscles and trying to slap a few people about. Trying to take Corfu, which belonged to Greece at the time.
But that had happened. So I think that was the year before. Actually, the League of Nations didn't show any teeth at all, and Mussolini was allowed to do what he wanted to do. But in this instance, it's the Greeks and the Bulgarians who have the fight, and the League of Nations actually is able to step in. And I think what the Irish News is saying is, look, it's great, but these are minnows, so they can do it. But once the big powers want to do something, They've no power at all.
Which is like the United Nations these days.
Exactly.
Everybody goes, the United Nations is toothless. Well, it's toothless because it's constituted to be toothless, and that it's made up of all the member states, and they have this the Security Council where one nation can veto everything.
Yeah.
So when we have the Israel-Palestine issue, America just says no all the time and vetoes anything that is vaguely anti-Israeli, and then people go, why is the United Nations not doing anything? Well, it's not doing anything because it's constituted not to do anything.
No, and look, it has obviously done some good stuff, as Irish people know, through the peacekeeping services in different conflict zones around the world. But overall, when it comes to the big powers, both the League of Nations and the United Nations have been found wanting but they were constituted that way to a large degree. Like the League of Nations was run by Britain and France, really. So unless you were an ally of those countries, you weren't probably going to be that favourable towards it.
Right.
And like, it was very interesting. But then again, small nations did see it as very important. And for Ireland, it was really important to become a member of the League of Nations.
Well, I was going to say, when did Ireland apply to join as soon as they got independence, or when did they? Yeah,
they applied because they were so obviously a free state was set up in under the treaty, but there was a provisional government for the first year, and then it was officially became a free state in December 22. Now there was talk of it applying. And even the Secretary General of the League of Nations wanted Ireland to apply in 22, but they waited until they officially became a free state. So they applied in I think December 22 and became a member in September 23. But they had to do there was a few checks they had to do. They had to pass legislation allowing for the Executive Council, the Cabinet, to make foreign affairs decisions without having to go through the Oireachtas. For everything, and then they were actually told by the League of Nations Secretariat that you're not committed to peace because your defence forces are too big. This is around the time. This is the time of the Civil War.
Oh, right.
So the army is about 58 to 60,000 strong.
Right.
So and they had to agree to whittle it down.
Right.
And they accepted that.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
did they not go, have you read the news? There's a wee bit of trouble over here.
But they became a member in September 23. So look, the hostilities.
The Civil War was over May 23.
Hostilities, at the end of May, but obviously was a Civil War footing still, and they still had all of the Republicans interned and imprisoned, about 13,000 of them. But am
I right? Sorry, that in 1925 they're in the League of Nations at this stage. But Ireland has, as a foreign policy, has made a decision to be officially neutral in any future European wars or whatever, and then neutrality is their official foreign policy. Is that?
No, that is true. But they see it as also as the League of Nations as a kind of a great avenue. First of all, to assert our independence. This is a big sign of sovereignty. Like Northern Ireland can't be in the League of Nations because it's not a country, whereas we are. We are a sovereign state.
Oh, that hurt. Oh, there's no need for that. I'm saying Northern Ireland's not a country.
Yes, I am saying that. Categorically, I'm saying that. Northern Ireland is not a country. I'll pass
you on the number of a man in Donegal who will put you right.
Jamie B. Oh, no, that's too obvious.
He's a lawyer.
Jay Bryson.
No, not a. So it is an assertion of independence that you can have your own independent foreign policy.
Yeah. And also,
Northern Ireland obviously can't be in part of the United Kingdom.
But it's not a country. But I mean. But also it actually gave them an avenue to actually have a say, have a voice, in conflicts around the world, or to progress peace and to be a voice of small nations, and often to kind of coalesce with other small nations with similar problems and similar colonial histories with bigger neighbours and all that kind of stuff. But, so it was definitely it was hugely important for the Free State. So even though it did not ultimately work in terms of resolving conflicts, and it was not able to stand up to big aggressors like Italy or Germany, but it was very important for countries like Ireland, small countries, and it actually allowed them to liaise with other smaller countries, and even with larger countries to have a diplomatic. Like not every country could afford a diplomatic kind of relationship directly with every country in the world. It was a big expense. So this was a good avenue to have diplomatic relations with other countries through Geneva, basically, where it was headquartered. So there was loads of good things to it. It was really important for the Free State. But then there always was this thing, and it did start with Mussolini, and it kind of ended with Mussolini in many ways too, with Abyssinia.
Yes.
When he invaded Abyssinia, it just did nothing, and then Hitler kind of pretty much laughed at it as well. And he knew by 37 that there's a dead duck here.
Was it 36? The League of Nations ordered everybody not to intervene in the Spanish Civil War. Was that am I correct?
It started in 36. I don't know. Did they actually say not to intervene? I don't know if they said that.
The policy of the League of Nations was non-intervention, and then the Germans just ignored that and said that.
And the Italians Franco. And the Soviet Union, and and kind of loosely the British and French kind of helped the Republicans in Civil War, but they didn't really though. But it was a very important body. But it's an interesting story when Ireland in 1919 wants to become a League of Nations member, but and obviously wanted its case for independence to be recognised, and it wasn't at the Versailles Treaty at Paris Conference talks, and they were pretty disgusted with Woodrow Wilson. Like he was the man who was kind of the champion of small nations,
the rights of small nations, which is what the war was supposed to have been fought about.
Exactly, but then he said, "Oh, this is an internal British issue," which is considering the huge Irish American bloc in America, like it's a kind of red rag to a bull, really, and but so America never recognised officially never recognised Ireland's case for independence.
Right.
When De Valera was over there, he couldn't get a meeting with Woodrow Wilson. So Ireland weren't allowed to join. There also was this ambiguity: should Ireland join League of Nations, because it was kind of Britain's baby with France. They're the ones running the show. So why
were the British happy for them to join the League of Nations?
But they I think they were okay with them joining in 23. But obviously before independence, too, no. There was no avenue for them to join. But yes, so there is ambiguity between nationalism within Sinn Féin. And the Republic, like De Valera, who becomes the kind of president of the Assembly and actually builds a great international reputation as president of the Assembly League of Nations in the 30s. During the kind of the Civil War phase, he thinks it's kind of it's a waste of time. It's run by the British, like it's just a kind of a show of farce. There's no point in us joining it. But the Free State government are committed to joining it from day one, and they also they see it as an avenue to deal with the Boundary Commission as well. So because they don't want the Boundary Commission as an intra-empire dispute. They want this as an international dispute and be recognised as such. And they actually get the treaty recognised by the League of Nations. Much to the disgust of in 24, much to the disgust of the British government. They get the treaty recognised as an international agreement.
Oh, right. So the League of Nations technically became a guarantor, as it were, of the...
it probably was more kind of, diplomatic speak, and, I'm sure the British could have ignored it, which they did. And they kept on... They ignored what the League of Nations was saying and recognising the treaty. They were saying this is an intra-empire dispute, and the League of Nations has no jurisdiction over intra-empire disputes.
Right. So
this is all said in 24, whereas W.T. Cosgrave and the Irish Free State government were trying to make this an international issue, and the British government go, no, this is not an international issue, this is an intra-empire issue. Yeah. We do what we want.
So Ireland at the League of Nations, it must have been kind of an inspiration to other countries, was it? I mean, kind of, we know the whole... we were always very focused on ourselves and what happened here. But part of the reason why the British were very reluctant to give as much freedom as Ireland wanted or to concede a republic was because they're worried about India and they're worried about other colonies and stuff like that. And India and various other took an inspiration from the Irish struggle. To see a small nation like Ireland that was so close to Britain now be at the League of Nations as an independent nation in inverted commas, it must have been very inspirational.
Absolutely, and it's something that the Free State government were very proud of. It was very important at home, and it was very important abroad. This kind of message: we are a proud sovereign nation. And I think when Cosgrave spoke when they were admitted to the League of Nations on 10th September 23, Cosgrave spoke that we're one of the oldest nations, but one of the newest nations too. So we even though Irish people have asserted independence for centuries, now we've actually achieved national as well, just recently. And it was, absolutely was an inspiration. And there was a lot of other new countries around as well, in Europe, like they carve up, and you had
Czechoslovakia,
Yugoslavia, like Poland had achieved independence as well. And then it lost it, obviously, not too long after, but as did most Eastern European countries. So it's a very important body for them as well.
Yeah, Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed and all of that.
Yeah,
so all those nations, and then Ottoman Empire collapsed as well.
Ottoman Empire collapsed as well, completely. Yeah. But it didn't, and it was a vehicle for the Free State government to assert its kind of foreign policy. But also they had kind of a few approaches. They had like bilateral relations with other countries, and they wanted a foreign policy that wasn't just focused on Anglo-Irish relations.
Right.
It going back to a previous episode, we're talking about trying to assert its independence, trying to show that it's not kind of kowtowing to Britain all the time. So they wanted close relationships with France, with Spain, Italy, Germany, and the smaller countries which would have a lot in common with Ireland. And then it had approached obviously the League of Nations policy, but also had a Commonwealth policy as well. So they were part of the British Commonwealth, the Free State, but they worked with the other dominions to make sure that their sovereignty's rights were improved. They had the Balfour Declaration in 26, and then you had the Statutes of Westminster. And they basically took the Balfour Declaration, which was at a Commonwealth conference, and then the Statutes of Westminster in 31, that gave Dominions the same rights as Britain. Basically.
Right.
So it pretty much give them full independence, saying
within the Commonwealth.
Yeah, you can make a decision. Say a local parliament, whether it's Dublin or Ottawa or wherever, can make a local decision, and Westminster can't intervene. Right. So that paved the way for De Valera to basically dismantle the treaty, because the British government had conceded that by 31. And people often say, that De Valera was very extreme during the treaty negotiations, and he was asking for too much. A lot of what he was asking for this external association. That was essentially conceded through these Dominions conferences. 26, 31, it was conceded. So it wasn't that far kind of reaching, or that far
as radical as we.
Yeah. So he wasn't asking for a total kind of abandonment of connections to Britain, but he didn't want obviously the loyalty and have an oath with the king. But so the Irish Free State, the Commonwealth government, were very effective in using the Commonwealth kind of conferences and using their foreign policy strengths to get other dominions on board, and to get the British concede to further independence. And De Valera, in one of the very few moments he actually praised the other side, said, actually, I probably wouldn't have been able to do, in terms of what I did, in terms of getting the Constitution through and, getting rid of the Governor-General and all of these things that dismantled the treaty, was it not for the work that was done by the previous government.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was
He said that in 38. He actually did.
That?
He said that they actually paved the way.
What? Like the treaty was some sort of stepping stone to freedom? That sort of
something
thing?
like that. I don't think he used the word stepping
stone. Did he not?
stone.
No.
Yeah.
The freedom to achieve freedom? He didn't say that either? No.
I don't think he said that. I don't think he said that. But yeah, so and then he who was, as I said, was not a big fan of the League of Nations, when Ireland, for Irish Free State, joined in 23, he became one of its biggest supporters. And again, the Commonwealth government had paved that way. In fact, when he became President of Executive Council the first time in 32, Ireland had a seat on the League of Nations Council. So he actually becomes President of the Assembly for a time, and he gives really, very famous and well thought of speeches about aggression of big bullies, big powers against small nations, and it's covered in the New York Times and all the international press, and he becomes an international statesman of. I
think remember when we covered his death earlier in the year in '75 that was a big thing, that he had become an international statesman and he pushed international affairs and stuff like that. And Ireland kind of had a sort of soft power that they still have, some of it's culture or whatever. But did they have that even back then? Did they? I mean, nowadays a lot of it is cultural and sort of. And there's still a respect and all that. Now, some people will say of the Irish are cards, and they're kind of they're protected by the British, so they can have whatever foreign policy they want because the British and NATO will protect them without them having to pay a penny. Did they have that? Did they have the sort of was there a likability of the Irish?
I think it was.
Other nations go, it's great to see you, or anybody going, fucking who are these boys?
Like for my research on football, the Irish soccer split when the FAI was looking to become member of FIFA in 23, and they're going like, but aren't you part of Britain? Like, so there still was a lot of confusion within foreign countries.
Right.
What was the real status? What was the political status of Ireland, the Irish Free State. And most people thought, oh, you're still part of Britain, so you can't be a member of FIFA, or you can't be a member of League of Nations. So there still was this, and that took a while to kind of get over that hurdle. But definitely, like they had a really good relationship with the Dominions. Particularly with the Commonwealth Gael government. They
Sorry to interrupt, but I should have to tell you this because there was a cameraman went to see Northern Ireland play Germany very recently in the World Cup qualifiers in Germany, in Cologne. And the message didn't get through because the Northern Ireland fans were greeted everywhere they went with Germany versus Northern Ireland. Ced míle fáilte. Ced míle fáilte. So still that confusion exists even 100 years on.
But there was a very funny, I think it's funny anyway, maybe the Northern Ireland IFA didn't think it was funny. Was it in the '58 World Cup when Northern Ireland qualifies? It's in Sweden and they arrive in Malmo. The bus that's collecting them has a tricolour on the bus. Take that off. They arrived at the hotel. They had a picture of the team. It was the actual Republic team instead of the so there was actually the only way Northern Ireland was always called Ireland, and the IFA, it's called the Irish Football Association.
Yes.
It was an All Ireland body, and they always wanted All Ireland football. And for years, you still see programs from the '70s which says Ireland versus England or the home nations match and stuff. But it was after the World Cup, because they did so well, they got to the quarter final and. A lot of people saying, like, shouldn't we just be called Northern Ireland because the Southerners are getting praise for our performance in the World Cup when it was us who did it. But we've digressed, or you digressed.
I digressed,
and I kept on digressing. But
apologies.
But go back to your question about were Ireland thought of, did it have soft power? Yeah, that definitely came true with the Dominions conferences, that Ireland really were good at building up alliances with the other Dominions and getting the British to change their sovereignty status and give them more independence. And obviously, and in De Valera, Bill has a huge reputation from his involvement with the League of Nations. Like, he really does develop a kind of a towering international figure, a kind of a man of reason when you have the whole of Europe collapsing basically around fascism and Bolshevism, and he was the one who was kind of a safeguard of democracy, speaking sense and talking against the aggressors like Germany or Italy or whoever it was. And he came across very reasonable, very statesmanlike, and he definitely built up a good reputation and gave Ireland a good reputation as well internationally at that time.
There you go. Fascinating. I did not know some of that.
Yeah.
This podcast is educational.
Educational,
educational. It's dead educational.
But do you see the UN now as similar to?
Over certain disputes, I mean, they're pretty powerless over Ukraine because Russia has a veto. They're pretty powerless over Palestine because.
Or Taiwan, if there was
America has if there's any dispute about China. So the Security Council is pretty weak. I mean, the General Assembly is doesn't have much power. I mean, even when you get to you had a General Assembly recently in America, didn't even let the leader of Palestine come into America.
Now the Colombian president his visa's been revoked.
Is that right?
He gave a speech, basically, I think America or Israel, they're not the voice of the world, and he said something like that, and his visa's been revoked.
Well, the trouble is
now there's actually talk of actually removing the headquarters from America. I think is that a valid point?
Well, and the trouble is, I mean, the lessons of history, some people are comparing present day to the 1930s, but if you undermine any international bodies that, have some sort of control or some sort of... Trump is just turning up the New World Order and just saying, I'm in charge, America first, don't care about international treaties, don't care about international bodies.
Exactly.
That's a very dangerous place to go because it'll apply to other nations. Will go, America first, well, okay, China first, Russia first, England first, whatever.
I know. We definitely have a whiff of 1930s about it. There's no question about it.
Cheered you up there, listeners, didn't we? Let's cheer people up.
And now the technology is far more horrific than it was in the 30s. So,
yeah, exactly.
To even cheer you up more.
What are we going to talk about now? 1975.
Franco.
Yes, cheer ourselves up with the death of Franco. Sorry, I didn't mean that. Did you not? Maybe you did. Franco, not a very nice man.
I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Not a very nice man. And this article is from
31st of October.
31st.
Halloween.
He's actually not dead.
Yeah, he hasn't died yet. Yeah, he hasn't died yet.
Prince takes charge as Franco lies dying. So he was in a coma for quite a while, wasn't he?
He was in bad way. Yeah, they knew he was dying. Yeah.
And it was Prince Juan Carlos assumed the power of chief of state from the dying General Francisco Franco, who was officially announced in Madrid. Prime Minister Carlos Arias Navarro told the Cortes, the Parliament, the prince was taking over temporarily because of the illness of the 82-year-old dictator Franco. Fans of the Irish history, boys, will no doubt know their history as well of other countries. But the Spanish Civil War, Franco came to power in 1939 after the result of the Spanish Civil War.
He was the leader of the
leader
nationalist force from 36. So,
after the Republicans
but they basically were in control, like, pretty much from 36. Like it was an unfair advantage, pretty much. Like the Republicans were always up against it, and then obviously when Germany and Italy helped the nationalists too.
Yes,
and there's no reciprocal help really from
the Russians.
The Russians helped a bit, but not to the extent of what Germans or Italians did.
And there was the international brigades.
Yeah, but that was run by the Russians though. So like,
some of it was. Yeah. Read George Orwell.
Yeah, he was there. How much Catalonia?
Was to Catalonia. Yeah, he starts off very idealistic and then finds out that the communists are running.
He got shot. He got shot in the throat, didn't he?
He got shot in the throat.
Yeah.
But he arrives in the middle of a civil war between the leftists and the very leftists and the anarchists and the even more anarchists.
The left having a split.
I
never them. Splitters.
So Spanish Civil War, very brutal civil war, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people killed. Awful, the result was that with the assistance of Italy and Germany, Germany famously bombing Guernica in 1937, first example of proper aerial bombardment by the
the Germans and the Italians used science of war to kind of try out their weapons, give some combat experience to their troops. You know, so it was a training exercise for those regimes. And Franco was very happy to take that assistance.
Further to our previous conversation, the League of Nations were kind of powerless to stop anything, and the war saw itself out. And Franco defeated the Republicans, as they were. The Democrats, we would say, they won the Democratic election.
But the nationalists obviously were. The Catholic Church would have been supportive of Franco.
Very.
The monarchy would have been. The Conservatives would have been, and then the other side, you'd have the liberals and obviously the socialists, communists. The whatever groupies on the left would have. But even the kind of. The different regions, would have, like, from Catalonia would have been very way more pro-Republican. Same with the Basque region, all of that. They're very anti-nationalist, and they suffered a heavy toll.
They did. Hundreds of thousands of people left the country as soon as they came into power. I was in Spain at the Valle de los Caídos, where some of the leaders of the Falange, the Franco movement, are buried. Is Franco buried there?
Was he dug up?
Maybe he was. I think the communist prisoners basically had to build this basilica on the side of a mountain. This huge cross in front of it, and all the fascist leaders are buried there. I don't know what they've done of it recently.
Where is it exactly? Is it near Madrid?
It's a good bit outside Madrid.
But Madrid will be the closest city.
Valle de los, the Valley of the Fallen.
I've seen obviously pictures and videos of it.
Old-fashioned fascist architecture and stuff. Huge pillars and overblown stuff and all that sort of. They were wont to do, but good old Franco lasted. He lasted the distance. From the 1930s dictators, Mussolini didn't last too long. Hitler didn't last too long. Here's Franco lasting right up until 1975. That's 40. What's that?
But just under 40 years, he was dictator of Spain. And a lot of people do say, like, very critical of him. Like, obviously, for his brutality. But also
Catholic.
But also he wasn't that bright, because he was very his personality wasn't a great speaker. He just would be like, he'd be very kind of po-faced. You wouldn't get any emotion from him. It's very hard to read him.
No crack.
No crack at all.
No crack out of Franco.
No crack out of Franco. So and he wasn't very good with economics. He wasn't an intellectual. He's a military man. He was the youngest general. He's 33 or something. He was generally like a brigadier general. So he was a meteoric rise. Started off kind of colonial warfare in Morocco, and he becomes general. And he's humming and hawing about getting involved because there is a Republican government. and he is very much a fan of the state. So he's something on whether he gets involved in this coup. This trying to bring the government down, and eventually he
in
does.
1936.
Yeah, he's been sidelined to the Canaries actually.
Yeah.
Which was real kind of dish and exile. But then he comes back and takes over the nationalist army, and then it's basically he becomes the leader of the nationalist country forces and becomes dictator. But he like. His critics will always give out an absolute. Why wouldn't they? But his supporters always highlight how brilliant he was, what a military genius, economic genius. But he was wily though. Like he was as you said, like he lived until 75, and there weren't many dictators that were doing that. And he was able to stay out of the Second World War as well.
Did he not want to get involved in the war? But he demanded a Spanish empire off Hitler, and Hitler said, "Would you have other things on that?" Because I thought he went to Hitler and said, "Look at the Italians and Mussolini's getting his empire. I'd like one of those, please."
Yeah, but he wasn't going like Hitler was saying to him like, "You have to fight in this war," and he constantly put pressure on him. And he got away with that. He didn't actually ultimately. And then he was kind of rehabilitated as well by the Allies afterwards, because he was so anti-communist, and then the Cold War was kicking off, so it was convenient for the US to have a good relationship with him. Now he was always anti the West as well, and liberal democracies, but the one of the reasons for Spanish economy boosting quite a lot in the 60s was because of the help from America and elsewhere in Europe, from these liberal democracies. And by then he was kind of he was kind of an elderly statesman. It was a dictatorship. It was very repressive, but he was kind of laissez-faire, almost dictator at that stage. And he did, allow for the monarchy to take back the crown as well. Now he thought Juan Carlos was a supporter of his. He wasn't. Like Juan Carlos, like the minute he dies, pretty much Francoism dies as well. And like he wanted a natural progression, like to keep up the his ideals, the idea of the state he had kind of created, and it's gone. Like literally, it's gone. From like I think the phalangists, they go for election in 77. 2 years after that, and they get 2% of the vote.
2%.
They're completely gone, erased almost from.
Do you remember? You're too young to probably remember the attempted coup in 1981. Colonel Tejero takes over the Cortes, the parliament, and lasts about a day and a half. Which is where Juan Carlos becomes a national hero. He's the king at the time, and I think they wanted the king to take over, but it was like an army coup or attempted army coup, and it only lasted a day or so. And they appealed to Juan Carlos, and he made it as they cut off all the communications around so the people who took over the court, they didn't know what was happening, but they captured all the MPs and stuff. And it was Juan Carlos made an address to the nation saying, "We're not putting up with this, we're not having this," and ordered all the army back to their barracks and stuff. And then they were able to diffuse the whole situation. So there was a chance that there was an attempt at a coup even as late as 1981, but that was the remnants of remnants. And,
but a bit like Portia as well. Like both countries did kind of progress to democracy quickly enough, but there obviously was some kind of hiccups along the way, and then both became members of the EEC in '84. But so Franco, like his reputation, rightly is it's very poor. Like he was a brutal dictator. Like he was a complete egomaniac. He thought he was kind of the messiah, but he was really not. No, I won't say that. But he was an awful, and he wasn't anywhere near as brilliant as he thought he was.
No,
he economically. He was a basket case as well, like for most of his duration. It was only in the 60s when kind of international kind of aid.
Tourism started.
Tourism became a big thing, and international kind of capital and money was coming through that it actually improved. None of his policies were responsible for that. So he was, and the way he treated his opponents was absolutely shocking. Like, thousands, whether killed or exiled or imprisoned, like. And real bitter as well, really nastiness.
The legacy of that still goes on today. I mean, there's still issues about uncovering mass graves and identifying people who were killed by the Francoists, particularly after the war. I mean, there were massacres carried out by the communists and stuff and the left-wingers, but not to the same extent at all of what
it was
both during the war and after the,
after the war as well.
Civil War,
Yeah.
after the war, awful massacres. And that's still a big issue. And for some people in Spain, Michael Portillo did a very good documentary about it, about the families.
He does good documentaries.
He does very good documentaries.
He does, to be fair.
He did a couple of good ones on Ireland.
He did.
He's fond of a train too.
He does like a train. He does.
He's fond of a train and a yellow pastel shirt and a pink trousers.
He's gone beyond his reputation of the Portillo moment.
Yeah.
Do you remember in '97 when he lost his seat? And now every big casualty in an election, the Portillo moment. You know?
I'm pretty sure his family were exiled in the start of the Civil War. His father was Portillo. I can't remember the exact story, but it was an anti-Francoist.
Okay, right. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Did you not know that?
No, I did not know that.
You see, you condemned the poor man, and he's a refugee from the Spanish Civil War.
Yeah. Well.
Michael Portillo. Yeah, look that up.
So was his documentary on retracing his own family?
No, he did a documentary about the families who were looking at mass graves, trying to dig up mass graves, the reluctance of the government to get involved, and how people were going, like, it's probably best left because there were relatives of people who were A, killed, and B, did the killing in the areas. And then, there was a lot of people going, just leave that, bury that under the ground, and let's not say anything about it. Let's not deal with that legacy, which is, of course, has resonances here as well, as you know.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But when Franco died, though, that all was kind of brushed under the carpet, the legacy issues. So, and that's some would argue that's the reason why it was able to transfer to democracy quickly, because there was none of this bitterness brought up and legacy issues. You might know a thing about that around this part of the world, but then it has come out on the last 20 years or so. It's kind of a lot of ghosts in the past are being dug up.
You're listening to the Irish History Boys with me, Tim McGarry, and Dr. Cormac Moore. If you want to get in contact, please contact us and tell Cormac he's wrong and that Tim McGarry's brilliant. You can contact us on irishhistoryboys@gmail.com. Can we talk about one weird story? Well, we have a bit of time left. Can we talk about one story that I really kind of, when I read it, I went,
it depends on what it is. We'll have to cut it if it's crap. Anyway,
Darrell Figgis TD.
Darrell Figgis, that is very sad. This is sad.
October 28th, 1925, tragic end in London of Mr. Darrell Figgis TD, well-known TD, was found dead in bed in London yesterday morning, the room being full of gas and from a jet that was fully turned on. And this is a kind of bizarre story. He was living in a lodging house in Granville Street, Bloomsbury. There were several letters to friends. A dagger was found in his attaché case. And Darrell Figgis, I've heard of the name Darrell Figgis. He was, what sort of TD was? Who was he?
Cumann na Gael. He was
Cumann na Gael.
Yeah. But this is very tragic because his wife, literally almost a year through the date, then she got into a taxi in Dublin, South Dublin, and she was going on the way to the Dublin Mountains, and she blew herself up with a gun in the back of the taxi, Ralph Arnhem, and a gun that Michael Collins had given to Darrell Figgis. So she committed suicide. Then he was obviously had a relationship with this nurse afterwards. But she was quite young, but she died. I don't know what she died of. It's mentioned in this article that last Thursday Mr. Figgis gave evidence at an inquest held at Hendon concerning the death of the Dublin dancing teacher Miss Rita North, who died in Hendon College Hospital on the 29th instance. And she the basic day had agreed to marry.
Right.
But she was I don't know what illness she had. It could be in TB or what. She was quite young when she died anyway.
So his wife had
died a year before,
and then his fiance or his
they
were planning to get married.
It's reported here that they were committed to get married.
Right.
But she died.
Right.
And I think he had to tell her parents. She didn't want the parents to know she was dying. So and then he
took his own life.
So it was a very, very tragic ending, to his life, his wife's life, and obviously his fiance.
Well, this would have been big news, and it was kind of this is the Irish news on the October the 28th, 1925.
Yeah.
He
was a TD, he was a very prominent figure in the Commonwealth Gael side, propagandist as well. I'm pretty sure he wrote a biography of Michael Collins, one of the first. I think he wrote one of the first, if not the first biography of Michael Collins.
Wow.
But very soon afterwards he came to his own tragic end.
Right. Okay, well, that cheered us up rightly, didn't it? Glad I picked that one just to end on a light note. But that's what you get with the Irish History Boys, ladies and gentlemen. You get serious stuff, you get light moments, you get very serious moments.
What light moments? We're talking about hang drawing and quartering.
In great detail.
We're talking about Franco's brutal dictatorship, and now we're talking about two suicides and tragic death.
I'll tell you about the light moment on the next episode of the Irish History Boys, which is the culmination of the exciting story that is the Boundary Commission.
Can't wait.
Join the Irish History Boys next time. Thanks for listening. See you again. Thank you.
That's the next time.